Welcome back. We're here for another teaching episode. I get questions about how I set up my side imaging on my Humminbird. I got a Helix 12 Mega. I get those questions a lot, or how to read side imaging. So I'm just going to spend some time going through my side imaging shots. A little bit about what I look for, what I do, how to separate out fish, how to separate rocks and other things. Still a very, very useful tool, even with the advent of forward-facing sonar and everything. You can break down a lake so much faster with side imaging. You can still see fish on side imaging. You can go do some things very, very fast without having to fish for them using your side imaging. I used it, I'll show you on Mille Lacs, the chicken picking out rocks, the best spots for that kind of stuff is so much easier when you just roll through at 3.5, 5 miles an hour and pick out the juice spots, where a long time ago it took me fishing to find those spots. And I'll go over the settings. These settings. And these are my generalized settings that I use. Most of the time on my side imaging, I really like to bring out the shadows is a big part. Not so much the fish, but reading the shadows to see, because shadows relating that information of a fish and trying to differentiate the thing. And I'll go over through this video what I do to differentiate and some different side imaging shots. I hope it helps. If it does, let me know. So we're just going to go over here, settings and contrast. Here's some examples of why you do settings and contrast are so important. You can tell, here's some screenshots from a long time ago. And this is with me doing nothing at all to any of the settings when I first started. This is from years ago. You can just see how much, you can see the down imaging is still pretty good, but you can see how dark everything is, the little amount of details you actually get by having it so dark. You're getting some details, you can see some stuff, but you're filtering out so many of the other things, the little details, which make side imaging do what it does. Still works, but there's a lot more information that could be there when you don't have the settings and contrast all right. And so I'm just going to go over some screenshots of when I got the settings and contrast right. I showed you before what I do for my Humminbird, how important it is, because you can see so much more, you can get so much more information, and I'm just going to go over those things now. So a long time ago I took the time, while idling around Kentucky Lake when it was on fire, that I took the time to get my settings all dialed in right. And here's the first screenshot, was from Asian carp. You can see them all lined up here. You can see just the massive groups of them, what it is, what you're looking at. You can see all the fish. Second shot is just more fish. You can see on the right the shadow that it's kicking off. Fish right there. What is down there? And the next one, why down imaging is so important. You can see here's a tree, and then you can see inside the tree a bunch of fish. Now that I've been using side imaging way more, you know that this is all crappies right down there. And a lot of crappies. I wish I would have fished this tree when I was on Kentucky Lake, that's for sure, but I did not. The next is group of fish. You can see in 2D, you can see them, but when you hit down imaging, how much more detail you get. Look at how much more detail. Look at all those fish down there. You can individually see every one of them when you get the details down. Here is an example of a hole in the weeds. Super important here in Minnesota. These spots are complete money, especially in transition time. You can see there's weeds around, surrounded by this little grouping of little hard spots and rocks and stuff in there. Next one is another tree, you can see once again fish stacked up down there, most likely crappies. Why you also run down imaging and 2D. And then you can also tell by running down imaging, look at this, there's a boat down there. Very cool to see this stuff comes out super easy on a lake like down south. Look at this. Wow, that group of fish right there on the right. Money. As you learn salmon imaging more, you can tell what groups of fish as you go on a lake, what's worth it or not. That's just reading it, but as long as you can tell the fish. Here on the left is another group of fish right there. You can see that group of fish. Just running how much they stick out. And then here's another group of fish on the left. Also sticks out real easy. Helps out when there's no weeds. Not so much in Minnesota. And then on this screenshot, look at this. You can see the bluegill beds lined up right here. Very cool thing, very important in Minnesota to find something like that. Here's a Minnetonka shot, I believe, of a pile of gotta be man-made stuff that got dropped down there. Just a little circle. You can see this highlights bottom hardness. You can see how it's darker all around, and then there's this little yellow spot that's harder bottom. That when it pops more like that, when it's got a brighter color, the harder the bottom is. Very, very key. You can just tell when you're going around, and then bottom starts to get harder. I start to look and get ready because you're gonna find rocks and other stuff. But that stuff definitely sticks out, that harder bottom. And then the next one we got, another little group of fish. You can see the weeds on the right. This is right on a weed line. There's a group of fish right here. 4 or 5 of them here. I just zoomed in. I have it on one of my YouTube channels, how to do that to make it easier if you got a hummingbird. Next, look at this great screenshot of the bottom hardness here, and then also the weeds. You can see the distinct edge to the weeds. Looks like there's a fish or two down there. Here's a whole thing of bait. You can just tell by the size. Whole bunch of them together. Big long strip of them. They also come in smaller. Here is another bluegill beds. You can see there's tiny little white specks in there. That's the actual fish. Now look at how cool that is. Magnified down there. You can see all those little fish those bluegills are still on the beds. Very key deal. It's finding hard bottom for those bluegills down there. Definitely something that you look for. Very key. Next one, more bluegill beds out on these points. You can see they love spawning in hard bottom. Once you find hard bottom, you find this. Very key. Post-spawn bass here in Minnesota to find such things. Here's another zoomed up image. Once again, still a couple fish down there. Doesn't look like any bigger ones. And then here's just a couple. These are a couple bigger fish here on the left. You can see that groups of fish suspended out there. This one a little harder, but there's a little something to the left there. Not 100% sure what that is. Oh, never mind. You zooming it in. There's a little group of fish again. Looks like smaller ones and maybe a bigger one. You can see a little bit brighter of an image there in with them. Then this is why you run 2D. Look at that on why you run down imaging. You can see there on the 2D that one fish that's off the rock right there. If you've fished, I've learned, just through the years of sonar, when you have that softer echo right there, it's a lot of times a fish, or it's not quite catching it, but technology's gone so far that you can see that fish just sitting there on the down imaging. What I would just before kind of make a guess, but you could tell by a softer on the 2D that there was something there, but you weren't always 100% sure. Then here's also, once again, look at this little man-made pile, whatever you want to call it. Look at all the fish around it. You can, not so good on the side imaging, but on the down imaging and stuff, you can see the fish down there. Once again, we got some fish here on the right and left. You can see them casting a shadow. There you go. once again magnified it to make it a lot easier. There's multiple fish right there. It's got to be probably more of carp or something, or rough fish, but yeah, there you go. So we're at the end of the video. I hope this helped. If you have any questions, you can always put them there in the comments, and hopefully I can help. Sometimes it takes me all the time to read the comments, but if you have any questions, definitely something I can help with. This is for the Humminbird down imaging, the Helix Mega. It's just what I do, and I hope it helps you. Thanks for watching. Like I said, comment. And yes, thank you for watching.